Hello and welcome to Coach on Fire Radio. I am your host, Paula Callick of Up Your Vibe to Make Shifts. And every time I come on this show, I love to bring you people from all around the world to inspire you to do something that's probably a little bit out of your comfort zone and maybe not. And today we are a lot closer to home. In fact, it was my hometown for 43 years, and that is Leicester. And we have Samantha Houghton. Hello, Samantha. How are you?
Hi, Paula. Yeah, really well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome, because I met you a few years ago on a meetup group, and I think it was called Good Intentions.
That's the one. Yes, I remember we used to meet on, I think it was a Saturday afternoon
In that vegetarian restaurant.
Cafe. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah, a few coffees.
Yes.
Conversation.
And of course, because it was vegetarian, I was able to eat a nice meal as well.
Yeah.
What really impressed me about you is you came in a little bit late, as I remember. You breathed in like a breath of fresh air, and you sat down with this huge, great big smile on your face, and you looked like the cat had got the cream. And then you started to talk about your book, and I thought, wow.
Yeah, I remember that Saturday afternoon. Yeah, so that must have been around last April time, because I'd been on this journey of writing my book, and I think I just got the first sort of proof copy with me. And I remember bringing it in because I told people in the group that I was this journey I'd been on, and I just thought, oh, I can take this with me and show everybody.
Yeah, you were so excited. So let me introduce you. Samantha is the best-selling author of The Invisible Child, and that led to you becoming a book coach. So you also help others to write books, and you're also a ghostwriter. So, and your book, The Invisible Child, became a bestseller, and it also won an award. And you published that in 2017, didn't you?
That's right, Paula. Yes. So yeah, it's been quite a natural progression, to be honest. I wrote my book. I actually gave up my first business because I didn't feel enough of a purpose anymore, and I done some speaking through my business, and I just suddenly felt I had this stronger and stronger desire to share my story, because I really wanted to help others. And I think, to be honest, that I needed to still have some healing to do for myself as well.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I couldn't get over from my past was shame. Whatever I tried, I just couldn't let go of the shame. And my intuition had told me to write my story and share my story. That would help me release some of that, but then it would also inspire others. So once I'd published, I was in a mad frenzy last year, so passionate about, I went on sort of like a book tour really, and I was out there doing book signings all around sort of like the East Midlands and a bit further afield. I did a lot of the book promotion and sales online, and just really, really passionate about getting my story out there.
Yeah, and you did get your story out there. I was seeing your Facebook posts popping up everywhere, and you really got yourself into a position where actually every time I turned the computer, I kept seeing you doing a Facebook Live, or you showing photographs of you at a fair, or pictures of you and your son together, and you really portrayed this life of happiness.
Yeah, I was. It had always been sort of like right back to when I was about 10. So I'm 48 now, and I loved creative English at school, and I had the aspirations to be an author. There was something about that really appealed to me, and I also wanted to be a journalist, but then my life took the path that it did, and that went by the wayside, and it did for a very, very long time. And I think really it was actually my first business that rekindled, excuse the pun I've put in there, rekindled my love for writing, with all the blogging I was doing, the social media posts. And so I really got back into that way of thinking and being self-expressive as well. That was a big part of my first business.
Yeah.
And yeah, it led me to write my book. And then it was just a very natural progression, because all I knew is that I had to share my story. Now, I didn't really have a big plan of what I was going to do with it. And I kind of adopted a different way of working, because I really burnt out through all the work I was doing with my first business. And I started to allow things to come to me more. I think it really took me on quite a spiritual journey. And I felt very aligned. I felt like I was being really true to me, and sharing this with the universe, as I call it. And amazing things happened last year. Well, they have ever since, to be honest.
So what was it that inspired you to share your story? Why did you think you needed to?
Yeah, well, when I was a teenager, I went through some really enormous struggles with my mental health. And I was placed in a psychiatric unit for teenagers when I was 15. I was there for 16 months of my life, which had a big impact on me and my family. And I don't think I ever truly healed from that. And then I went on to have years of different therapies. I became very, very confused about my identity, who I was. And I was always trying to be somebody else, because bottom line, I didn't feel I was good enough, and I felt I was invisible, hence the name of the book.
Yeah.
And that created, as you probably understand with the work you do, just created so many issues for me, and so many layers I had to learn to remove. And it just felt like the book was like just so healing with that. And even though I knew all of this stuff up here, what I'd been through in my life, to actually write it as a manuscript is so powerful. And it just really highlighted everything to me. And I had new perceptions and realizations from writing my book. And to be fair, for months afterwards, I was having all of these new realizations. It was a very powerful thing to do. But then from that, I just feel like I did really get into this place of alignment. And just people started to sort of gravitate towards me, and amazing things. I mean, people call them synchronicities.
Yes.
And it was just incredible. Last year, I just met people, and it's like, what were the chances of that happening?
Yeah, like you and I.
Yeah, exactly. And that was just going on and on and on. It's like I was at an event one day, quite locally, and I was book signing. It was a wellbeing festival. And a lady came along, and she saw my book and was interested, started to flick through, and we struck up this conversation. And it turned out she'd actually been in the same unit as me when she was a teenager. God. Not at the same time, a few years before. And there was only it housed about 10 teenagers. I mean, the chances of that. And then we actually met up afterwards a few weeks down the line and had coffee. And there was just so many of these things happening.
And that's because that was meant to be your journey. You were meant to connect.
Definitely. And that's giving me goosebumps now talking about it.
Yeah, it would do, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So you call this book your memoirs, don't you?
Yeah, I call it my memoir, true life story.
Yeah, so does that go back to when you were a child?
Yeah, it's sort of like a true account of when I was about 10 years old, right the way through until I wrote it up till very current day. So that was sort of like last February time.
Yeah.
And then I started to write another book as well because of all these realizations.
Yeah.
That's not happened yet. That's about 6 chapters in. Okay. And that's on the back burner because what happened was the latter part of last year, because I was on this mission to just get my story out there, I became so public and people started to reach out and ask for help with their stories. So that led me on to my first ghostwriting client. And then there's been about another couple since, and I'm just about to go on to my 4th one. And then there was also people who wanted to write the book themselves, but they wanted the guidance. So I created a program of what I did, a very sort of structured program to a very sort of creative project. But for me, if you get really, really crystal clear, then, and have a really real plan for your book, then you don't tend to get writer's block. Because I think you get the writer's block when you don't have that clarity.
Yes.
So I help people get really clear and really focus on who they're writing it for and who they want to.
There are very, very specific steps to story writing, isn't there? And I think a book also follows a particular process in terms of the steps.
Yes, definitely. And I think especially with a book like this, when you're writing about your own journey, some people find that quite challenging, because it's obviously revealing about yourself. You're having to reflect back.
Yes.
And that might not always be comfortable and can bring up, obviously old memories.
Not just for you, it might not be comfortable for other people involved in the story as well.
Yeah. So there's quite a few things that I've found that I work through with my clients, sort of looking at that and just finding another perspective of looking at it, because I went through that as well. And I wrote my book really quickly because it flooded out of me. But then halfway through, I stopped for a couple of days, and I actually spoke to a coach who really helped me see, because I was the point that I struggled on was the bit I was writing about was actually a really happy time when I had my son. But what it actually did was really make me think about my parents and about how they must have felt where the struggles I went through and what they saw me go through for a long time. And it just, I don't know, it just really, really sort of got to me at that point. And I was feeling very protective of my family. But this coach really helped me to see it in another way. And it's like, well, they had given me their permission already. It was my own thoughts getting in the way. And I was determined to finish it, but she really just helped me to see it differently.
But ultimately, the whole experience has been very cathartic for you. And it's, of course, led you on a different path in life completely to where you were before, which is absolutely amazing. And you talk about getting things done. That is the difficult part, isn't it? Keeping that high energy to actually get things done.
I think I really do believe, though, when you are being very true to you and really feeling aligned, the path, even though it still has the ups and downs, it does tend to be a lot smoother, because again, it's like things tend to gravitate towards you rather than you chasing after things, after people, after opportunities.
Yeah,
so appear.
What do you think are some of the excuses that people may put in the way for not getting started straight away
on writing their book?
Yes.
All kinds of things. So the main thing is, the biggest one of all that I hear over and over is, who wants to read my story? Who wants to read about me? And so I can, if people are prepared to look at that, I can help them dig deeper with that. And actually, I am I've spent years, so I guess my training as such for doing this was sort of like 20 odd years in the making, with all the books I was reading and studying. And I know, for one, the profound effect that they had on me, and some in particular. Because I was in a dark place for a long time, and I had deep struggles, and I was very stuck, and I had addictions, which again kept me very stuck, masking everything. But reading other people's stories was such a source of inspiration for me. And there was one book in particular that I read, and I just knew that one day I had to do the same, because I had I was so proud of this man, of what he went through, and he came out, and now he's helping all these people around the world and speaking, writing his books. And to me, that was I just knew that's why I was here.
Yeah, I mean, you've absolutely mirrored him, haven't you?
He's been my big inspiration. Yeah. Am I allowed to mention his name?
Of course you are.
So his name is Dave Pelzer. He's written some very, very well-known books.
And what's the name of one of his books?
The very first one was called A Child Called It. So he was
called It.
Yeah. And then there was a man named Dave. He's written several now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about his journey when he was a young boy. And he went through horrific abuse of all kinds. And he just had this resilience, this inner strength.
Yeah.
And it was just such a powerful read. And I just thought, my God, if this man can get through all of this, come through all of this, and now to give back, and I don't know, it's such a big heart to do that for other people.
Yes.
He just wowed me. He just wowed me. And that really got me into looking at other people who've done similar things.
Unfortunately, people do go through their life, and there are some adversities that people have to get through, and some people are fortunate that they can get through them and come through the other side a better person because they learn from their experience, and it seems to promote this greatness inside them and this resilience that means they're going to get up and they're going to inspire other people. And sadly, some people don't.
Yeah.
And they stay stuck in themselves, that energy stays stuck inside them. And this energy is the energy that they give out to the world, and it's the energy that they receive back. And we are so fortunate that we've been able to get out of that and to inspire others to get out of it too, because that's why I do this show. That's why I love to have people like you on my show to share their story and to say, look, I was down there too, and look where I am now.
Yeah.
And if you inspire just one person today, Samantha, to get up and call you and start their book, to me, that's an ultimate success. And I'm feeling very grateful right now.
Yeah, so am I. And just the fact that somebody could be watching this, listening to this, and if it strikes a chord with them, because that's what happened to me with this man's books. To the point where I thought, I've got to do this. I've got to go and do this. So he's had a massive impact on my life and all the other books I've read as well, because it was, I think the ultimate thing for me was I was always trying to identify with somebody. I felt I was so different.
Yes.
So
and of course you are so different. We all are.
Yeah.
We're all very unique. Why would we want to be anybody else?
Definitely not. No.
I accept myself for who I am, and I know that parts of me aren't great. But you said something earlier about we're all in as humans, we're perfectly imperfect, and that is absolutely true. Yeah, we're perfectly imperfect. That's the way we were meant to be. If we were all perfect, gosh, what would the world be like?
Boring.
Wouldn't it? It'd be absolutely boring.
Well, we'd all walk around like robots and made of plastic, wouldn't we?
So, to you, what is the purpose of writing your memoir? How could you put this in a nutshell for other people to understand what's the purpose of it?
I think it is an individual thing. I think it can be different things for different people. Like for me, it was partially to heal myself, but then also very much to help other people. I think most people who have gone through this process have found a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've even had people who have read my book and they've contacted me, like emailed me, or we've actually met in person, and they've actually said, because I go towards the end of the book, I talk about my business journey as well, and then right at the end I've done a section about my life, what I call like my life lessons, the things I feel I've learned, and they've read it and they've said it has been very powerful, and it's made them want to make quite a significant change in their life. And that's like shocked me a bit when I first heard that. because that's happened quite recently. Someone has recently read my book and he's read the second half again.
Mm-hmm.
And he said my book was like a football match. So I was like, okay, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, nice and as pleased.
I know, yeah. And this was like, you know, from a guy. And he said, your book was like two halves. The first half, it was like, wow, God, this is the real struggles. But then he said the second half, it was like you can really see the transformation and to see where you went to and where you're probably going to be going. So I sort of left the book on a note of sort of what's to come, looking forward to the future. And he read the second half again, and he's actually decided to scale this business down that he's had for nearly 30 years. And yeah, he wants a new challenge. So I was, wow.
He pointed out something to you that's really important, because there is a formula to a book, and there has to be some resolution at the end of it. Somehow, no matter how small that resolution is, you know, there has to be that resolution for it to be successful. And writing a book is not about becoming a millionaire. You're not going to make masses of money, or you might make masses of money. But the things that come along with a book are amazing.
I think it's, again, I suppose it depends if you want to write it with a business context or a purpose of a business behind it. Again, anyone that I work with, I try and get them very clear on that at the start of when I wrote my book, I was just in such a place of empathy, and it just all I knew, because I'd burnt out my first business. It was during these months of really was not able to work at all. I was exhausted, and I think it was a lot of my old stuff as well still there, this old energy. And I just knew I had to share my story. So it was that was all it was. There was nothing businessy-fied about it at all.
How did you rebuild yourself after the burnout? What is it that you did specifically to get you back up enough that you could get pen to paper and start writing?
I just stopped. I allowed myself to do a lot of the things that I'd always loved doing, but I got myself into such a restricted mindset with my first business, because it was very much about, because I had this shame from my past, I felt I had a massive thing to prove to myself, because I'd been in and out of psychiatric wards for many years, on medications, in and out of jobs, not really, I felt a big failure. It might sound strong, but I felt a very big failure. That was how I felt, especially in a career sense. So I felt I was unleashed. I had this business, I could do what I want. So I was so driven, but I just went at it like a mad thing for about 4 or 5 years. And, you know, it's not like I'm in my 20s doing it. I'm not old, but I'm not in my 20s either. So, but I hadn't allowed myself to barely watch TV, do anything. It was bringing up my son, and it was work. It was focus. For like 4 years solid.
And of course, to you, it's brought you enormous benefits for writing a book, hasn't it?
Hugely, it's the personal healing, but now to be able to, well, not only touch people's lives with my book, but to be actually, privileged to guide other people, and to even be writing for other people their stories. It's huge. It's a big responsibility. And
sometimes like an excited child all the time, like this.
Definitely.
And days like that, and I get up and I think, oh my God, look at all this great stuff that's going on in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I do tend to go quite fast. My mind works quite fast. And when I get really excited as well. But when I do stop and slow down, sometimes I think it's important to reflect back, just to see your journey and where you've come from. And it's like, and I look at the last 18 months and I'm like, wow, actually.
I know it's happened so quickly. Everything has happened so quickly for you. So what is the best way to write a book productively, especially if you've got a job at the same time?
Yeah, sure. So I tend to try and work with people in a person-centered way. So to treat people individually. Well, I say to people at the start, we get, like I said, I get people as clear as I can, because if you've got that clarity, everything's so much easier. Then have a very specific plan that I help people with how to plot your story out. So then it's very much about just then slotting the content, which is the chunks of your story, your chapters, into place. And it's quite nearly all of my clients have said it's a very therapeutic thing to do. Once they start, that they just want to keep going with it. And it's sorry, what was the original question again? I've gone off on a tangent.
How would they write a book productively,
Oh, yeah.
especially if they have other commitments in their life?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so for example, I've got a client at the moment who we're just at the editing stage. In fact, he is amazing. He totally inspires me. So he was expelled from school when he was 15. I know he doesn't mind me sharing this, by the way. It's just about to go out anyway. He was in prison. He got into drugs and into more crime. So he missed out on that very sort of valuable time in his schooling. So English in particular was really not a strength of his. But he's now become very successful in business. And he, very similar to myself, had this big desire to share his story and help other people.
Yeah.
And he came to me and he said, I want to write my book. I want, by New Year's Eve, wow. I want my book in my hand. He says, can you do that? And I says, damn right we can. I said, if you follow what I say and commit, you've got to commit. And he's got three businesses, and he's just starting a podcast, yet the guy has written his book. He did it in about 2 months.
So it's possible.
Very possible. If you can do it with 3 businesses,
yeah.
He's got a son, and he's doing this podcast as well, and he's written a book, and English is not his strength at all. Then if he can do it, anybody can, I'd say.
So anyone listening, there is no excuses big enough to stop you from getting up and contacting Sam and getting the ball rolling.
There's only
Sam, you have access to everything, don't you? To editors, to the publisher. You can have a Kindle book, or you can have a hard form book.
That's right. Yeah. I knew once I'd written my manuscript last year. I'll add this in because this might really help some people, because another obstacle that gets in people's way is the financial factor. Mm-hmm. They think, it's going to be really expensive. How am I going to afford it? Well, what I did, so because I'd not been working for months, and I'm a single mum, I was basically broke. Mm-hmm. And I wrote my story, and then I was given the idea of using a crowdfunding platform. Not even one specifically for books, because there are those out there.
Yeah.
And I created like this, my project on there with a video. And again, I suppose because if your why is really strong, and I think if you really put your why forward and how it can benefit other people, then I started to share it again on social media, and people were amazing. And by the end of the week, I got enough funds to finance it. Wow. And then you can reward people for your book. So in effect, you can they're paying for the book in advance, but you can offer.
It's like a better pay it forward. They do that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, some people just like to give for the sake of giving and helping, but it just blew me away. And then other people stepped forward during that week as well. And then I was offered a book launch. Again, it was like the universe were just saying, this is meant to happen, and it was made as easy as possible.
Exactly. When you get yourself out of that mindset that I can't do it, and you start doing it, things change. Somehow things seem to change, don't they? Without
Oh,
you even making the effort.
yeah. It to me, I always say it's magic because it
Yeah.
feels like magic.
It is
And it,
magic.
yeah. And I think the only it's the old cliche, but the only thing that's going to get in your way is yourself, because
Yeah.
you can.
And
This
it's
is
absolutely true, isn't it? It's absolutely true.
this is like the tougher side of me, but it's like because I can be a bit of a taskmaster, but a book is a massive project.
Yeah, if anybody tells me I can't do anything, that is
Yeah,
absolute motivation for me.
definitely.
Prove them absolutely wrong. And I am going to
Yeah,
do it regardless of what they say. But not
that's right.
everybody has that mentality. So
Yeah,
that leads nicely on to my next question. So when people have got limiting beliefs,
yeah.
how do they get out of them?
So there's a section on my mentoring program that I've devoted entirely to that, because I've tried to create my program in the stages that I feel people would, those issues are going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the limiting beliefs can keep coming up throughout the journey, and especially as I'm finding out now towards the end of the journey, when it's coming towards the editing stage, it's suddenly becoming very real for people.
Yeah. So if
Uh,
you could give just one strategy that you use to
mhm,
release a limiting belief, what would that be?
yeah. So if they were to say, for example, their limited belief was about who's going to want to read my story. They've started on the journey and then that comes up, which it does often. I will nail it down with them. I try and get to what's behind it and then help them to really shift their perspective. And then I also use a lot of affirmations. Again, this is quite near the start of the program.
Yeah.
You don't actually start writing until I think it's your 5th session, and it's 10 sessions, because we do just so much mindset stuff to get people in a really good place. And then I get people to turn that limiting belief into a positive reinforcement, and then use that, and then also to create a vision board. So we do a lot of powerful stuff around their vision, their author vision. And then I am also, I try and be really supportive throughout the journey as well. So when the limiting beliefs come back up, I'm so passionate about that side of it as well, because I went through it all myself. So I know I'm helpful to be able to, with my clients, to be able to sort of like, get them to turn it around again. And we are going to make this happen. This is, you are going to do this. And then, they feel better from it again.
And it absolutely is about mindset. But what if someone said to you, I really, really want to do the course, but I've already done that mindset stuff. I've already done vision boards. I've already done affirmations. They don't work for me.
I would say, well, you haven't done them with me for a start.
Great answer.
Yeah, and it's only part of the process, because there's the rest of it as well.
Yeah.
And if I've taken quite a few people through it now, and I've done it myself, so I'm walking the walk, talking the talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got people through it, and people who, like the person I was talking about, who's not even got any experience of writing whatsoever. The main thing you need is the commitment.
The commitment, absolutely, and the
If
accountability.
you're committed,
How do you inbuild accountability in your course?
I crack the whip. So
I'm joking, folks. She doesn't really crack the whip.
No, I don't really crack the whip. Only the virtual whip. I, at the end of sessions, I set the targets with the clients. Right, okay, so you're going to do such and such by such date, and they agree to that. And then I check on them within that period of time as well. So I do support people a lot through in between. It's not just 10 sessions rigid and that's it. So I support people through email or even through social media messaging.
So what's the average time for someone after taking your course to complete their book?
So that the purpose behind it, like the USP really, is to have your book written within 90 days. So the program takes about 90 days, 3 months. And then the bit afterwards, well, that depends very much on the client. Like I say, there can be quite a few wobbles towards the end, and I remember that very well myself, because it's getting real then. It's like, oh, my book's actually going to be out there.
So just to clarify, that a USP is a unique selling point, because the audience might not understand that. Everybody doesn't talk the same language.
No.
So that's your unique selling point. So are you just working with people who want to write memoirs, or could you help somebody who wants to write a self-help book, or somebody who wants to write a fiction book?
Yeah. I mean, memoirs is the main, it really is the main focus. That's my true, inspiration.
Yeah.
Self-help books kind of fit in with that, because quite a lot of these memoirs, and mine did as well, sort of have that self-help element to it as well. So that I see them as quite similar. Yeah. Fiction, no, I leave that alone.
It is only a story though, and it's the same principles.
It is, but I just, the passion's not there for me. I think everything for me anyway, I act on inspiration, and if I don't feel something, I really struggle to do it.
But if they feel that, then there's a possibility, isn't there? Nothing is certain, but everything is possible.
Yeah, everything is possible. However, I don't feel I would be giving them the best service if I don't feel it as well.
Because that's quite taking you out of your comfort zone, maybe?
No, this is really my passion, my niche. I see writing fiction, even though there's some of the same principles, there's quite a big difference. I think I love the fact that there's a lot of mindset work.
So the lesson here is to stick with your passion.
Absolutely.
Then that's the recipe for success.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you love what you do, it oozes out of you. That helps bring people to you anyway. Yes. And if you're trying to, as I call it, flog a dead horse, if you're trying to, I spend a massive part of my life trying to make myself be somebody, feel things, and that's just an uphill struggle. You create all that resistance. Why would you want to do that? So
when you're coming from a place of pushing as well, it never works when you're coming from that place.
That's right. Yeah, that kind of was the place I was in and burnt out from. I've no desire to go back to that place again.
It just drains your energy, doesn't it? It's proper energy that's draining, and you attract people around you that we call energy vampires that just suck the living daylight out of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
you're attracting.
Yeah, and who wants that really for themselves, if they're honest?
Some people thrive on that. They like to be in that victim position.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess I used to.
Yeah, they enjoy it because of the secondary gains of being in that position.
Yeah,
they get sympathy from people, they get empathy for people. They don't have to go to work. There are lots of secondary gains in being in that victim position, and people listen to them. They have company around them, and they stay in groups of people that are similar, so they have their own clan really, and it can become very toxic. So
definitely,
and move away from that place.
And it can stop you. It's an avoidance, isn't it? It stops you facing your fears really and moving forwards.
And there's a lot of sabotage involved in that. A lot of sabotage involved in being in that position. So this is why it's great to connect with people like you are there. You're offering a service which you've proved. It's got a formula for success. It's a step-by-step process. You've got accountability in place. There isn't any reason why anybody who wants to write their memoir shouldn't contact you today.
Absolutely not. No, if you are listening to this and you can resonate with this, then I urge you to please reach out, because you have no idea if that feeling's there, then I urge you to act on it.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Sam, how would they do that?
So there's my website, which is www.samanthahoughton.co.uk.
Okay.
And then there's also my Facebook page, which is my name as well. I think you've got that on the screen there.
Yeah.
There's also, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter.
You're everywhere, basically.
I have my email, Instagram, Pinterest.
So would there be, we will put the email address on your podcast after the live show, and there will be the book. We can put the book link on there to buy your book. We can put the website on it. Are there any other addresses that you would like people to reach out to?
Oh, I have a Facebook group as well.
We can put that link on there as well.
Brilliant, thank you. That's for sort of, again, people who want to write their true stories.
Yeah.
Whether they're not necessarily a client, if they're thinking about it, they've got that interest. Then please, love you to join the group. It's a private.
Oh, I'd love to join the group.
You can join the group, definitely.
I've got intentions, as you know. My book has been delayed now for several months, and my second book really should have been out by now. So yeah, I think I might be joining your group. So you actually have a really, really nice quote that you say, and it's not what's happened to me, but what I choose to become, and that's from Gustav Jung.
That's right. Yeah, he says some very, very inspirational things anyway, but that in particular really resonates with me.
In what terms? Explain what's your perception of that quote?
For a long time, well, about 30 years to be specific, I believed I was a diagnosis. I was a label. I'd been given these different labels, diagnosis, and that was from a very young age.
Yes.
And I believe that. Who was I to argue with a professional, an authority figure? And from that young age, I was given different ones over the years, and I was just in that mentality. I believe what I was told. And one of my thoughts now is whatever you believe, you become. So that quote, it just says it all for me.
It does, but for some people, when they get a label, it's a massive relief to them, and they're saying, no way I acted that way now because I've got bipolar, or I've got whatever label they want to give them. And to me, labels can be very damaging because you do live to that label, just like you said. And it's unfortunate. I've had experiences with the mental health services myself, and being on the other side of it, I work on both. I've been on the other side of it with my son, as well as working in mental health services. And believe me, it wasn't very nice to be on the other side of it and the way that we were treated.
No.
They force you to take. This is my experience. Yeah, my son was forced to take a diagnosis, and I fought not to take a diagnosis.
Yeah.
But they cannot do that. They have to have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And that was very damaging for him.
And then when you get a diagnosis, 9 times out of 10, you're given the prescription with it as well.
And I'm not anti-medication, because I do believe there are times in life when you must have medication. There isn't always a holistic way to treat it, although the NHS do say they treat people holistically. Sometimes that's not possible, and you have to take medication. We as practitioners have to work hand in hand with the professionals in order to give that holistic view of care.
Yes,
but we're not going to go down that avenue.
No, and that's for a different one, isn't it?
Because it's getting very close now to the end of our show. So is there anything else you'd like to share before we bring the show to an end?
I remember just before we went live, we were just having a quick chat, weren't we, Paula?
Yes.
Can't remember how it came up in conversation, but I said that I'd worked with a mentor, and one of the most profound things for me that I resonated with what she used to say was she was going to be successful, but she had to be herself. So I am successful for being me. And that for me, if ever I go into that place of fear again, because we all do,
yes,
and that really, really helps me because it stops me doing that horrible self-judgment thing.
yes. And
And
we are, as you said earlier, we are our own worst enemies, and we do love to judge ourselves. Yet if that was our best friend talking to us the way that we talk to ourselves, would they actually be our best friends anymore?
Probably not. No.
No, there wouldn't be. And unfortunately, this is what we do to ourselves, and we allow ourselves to be our own worst enemy because we're not in control all the time of what we're thinking, what we're saying to ourselves, the internal representations that's running through our mind, the rumination. And you know what? We are just who we are. And I love Marissa Peer saying, where she just says simply, I am enough.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to start saying things that's absolutely ridiculous, like, I am this top author, when you've never even put a few lines down, that's not going to help you.
No,
but simply,
you?
Simply just acknowledging that you are enough. You are enough.
Yeah.
You really are enough. So this has been an amazing episode with you, Sam, and I'm so glad that you agreed to come on. And I'm absolutely sure that the audience out there will take great value away from this chat tonight. And even if they don't come to you, they could find another book mentor. But the number one importance, I think, when you're writing a book is to have a mentor. Doing it alone is great if you can, but having that mentor to keep you accountable and to guide you is really, really a guaranteed success.
Yeah, someone who's been there and done it. And I think like that for most things. I look to other people for inspiration, because if they've done it already, why make it harder for yourself? Find someone that you resonate with, someone that's got similar values, I always say, as well. Because then that can really project you, fast forward you with what you're doing as well.
And I will make all your details freely available on the podcast for anyone wishing to contact you. It's time to draw this wonderful show to an end now. So I want to thank you, Sam, for being with us tonight, and thank the audience for living in, and say my goodbyes to the audience and send lots of love. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thank you.
Fantastic. Catch you again soon. Bye.
Bye.